Why do the same names keep getting pro skates? Why aren't there more young pro skaters? And is rollerblading getting it wrong when it comes to investing in the younger generation? In today's video, we're going to look into why so many brands take this approach and what it means for the future of rollerblading. All the stunts are performed by professionals. Do not attempt this yourself. Less than 20% of the pro skates released in the last 4 to 5 years have been for people 25 or under. It seems kind of counterintuitive, but why is it that way? Nostalgia. Nostalgia is big in rollerblading, which makes sense because rollerblading was at its biggest in the 90s, early 2000s. Like, why wouldn't you look back fondly on a time when the scene was more vibrant and your knees functioned correctly, however short-lived that was? Money was getting thrown at rollerblading, people were actually getting paid. This meant there was more of everything, more brands, more competitions, more people skating.
More passion, more energy.
More incentive to take risks, and not just from a business perspective.
They slipped in a slogan on their clothes that reads, "Destroy all girls."
But also from the skater's perspective. Careers in rollerblading seemed viable if you could just make a name for yourself. One thing there wasn't more of compared to today was content. Social media means we are bombarded with it, and skaters feel inclined to put stuff out to stay relevant. It's like those restaurants where the menu is as long as the transcript from The Godfather parts 1, 2 and 3. It's just bamboozling.
What's the matter with you?
I just want chicken and chips. I don't care where the chicken was raised. I don't care if it went to boarding school or not. It could have just come back from 2 weeks in Ayia Napa for all I care. Just give it to me. Back in the day, there wasn't this pressure for constant content. People could work on bigger projects and really take their time crafting a part and video. This did, however, create a pressure to do something momentous, as it might be their only part that year. So skaters would go all out, while the consumer was quite used to sitting there eagerly waiting for something to come out. When it did, the results were more impactful.
You're in the hole!
People would actually sit with it and re-watch it, mostly because you'd have to wait until the next thing come out. But you'd watch it so much you'd know every trick from the video.
You know this one?
Every lyric from the songs in the soundtrack. You could tell people what trick it was without watching, just by listening to the grind noise. Julio, Top Soul. All this combined turned videos into classics, sections became iconic, and it would make heroes out of the skaters. You'd shit your britches if you knew there was a new Brian Sheamer section coming. People were thirsty for content, and skaters were kind of mysterious things you'd only get a glimpse of every now and then in the videos or the magazines. So they were kind of elevated to this Don-like status. The further you get away from that time period, the greater the lore becomes. I heard Dustin Latimer grew the first shadow in his garden with his tears and the filling from a Kinder Milk slice. He then filmed the greatest section ever known to man, but NASA fired it at an asteroid to save all humanity. Based on the average age of rollerbladers now, the vast majority would have been skating during that time period or towards the end of it, so they would have been lapping all of this stuff up. Those skaters from that time would have been complete legends to them. Today we get nostalgic releases. USD had their 25-year anniversary collection, Aaron Feinberg got a skate, Sagona got a skate, the latest was an updated version of Dustin Latimer's Shadow. There's a Fabiola Bladey skate on the way. Takeshi had to win 14 gold medals, but he's just got his first one. Razors had 2 Brian Sheamer re-releases that sold like hotcakes. Dead and Randy Spicer did an updated version of his Criolla Senate wheels, and people were spitting biscuits to get those ones. Loads of people were buzzing for these releases because it reminded them of their youth, but not everyone was hyped. You'd see comments like, "Oh, sick. Another pro skate for someone who doesn't currently rollerblade." And why not give a pro skate to a member of the newer generation of blades? One of those emojis with the single teardrop, which are understandable comments, but this approach of leaning into the safety of what is known is not exclusive to rollerblading. We live in a time of remakes, reboots, let's just keep pumping out these Marvel movies, sequels, prequels, conceptions. Even in the boxing or the UFC, it's all rematches and trilogies. Milk the cash cow. If it's worked before, it's probably going to work again, seems to be the thesis. Companies are looking for what's going to make them money and what's going to reduce the risk of them having a complete stinker. This feels heightened in rollerblading. Rollerbladers are an at-risk group. We should be in some sort of conservation, like help increase the numbers and then gently reintroduce us back into the wild. A couple of bad drops could see the shutters come down permanently, or at least restrict what that brand can do going forward. There's a lot going for these nostalgic releases beyond just the proven track record, and in the short term it's a sensible way to generate money, maybe even substantially more than taking a risk on a new pro. Aim at the biggest part of the niche, because it is a niche after all. But what does that mean for the new generation and the future rollerblading? Do they even get a look in? If you like the vids, give us one of these. I've also got merch. There's a Patreon with exclusive videos and sneak peeks. There's a YouTube membership with the same thing. It really does help me out. I wouldn't be able to do this without it, so cheers. First, let's look at the young skaters, say mid-20s or younger, that have pro skates. You've got Dominic Bruce, got a pro skate from Mesmer. Marius Gaile got a pro skate from them. Ilia Savosin got a pro Fifth Element and he's just done an M12 from Rosie's, and USD just gave Michael Witzemann a pro sway. These are probably the 4 main brands in rollerblading right now. So this is some form of representation. Not only are they young, but their style is also reflective of modern skating as well. Marius and Dom have had a presence since they were young. Witzemann won the Blading Cup, and Ilia has a strong social media following. According to Billy O'Neill,
we're saying we're going to give everyone on our pro team pro skates at some point, and we're going to fulfill that.
So that's Levi Van Rijn and Martin Danning, both around their mid-20s or younger, getting skates. Again, another 2 skaters who had a presence since they were young. Danning has competition pedigree, winning the juniors and AM at Winter Clash. Levi had a pro skate before, actually. The one good thing Adapt did, but we all kind of know how that one ended.
He told me, like, I'm gonna ruin your career and I'm gonna break your legs if you like start skating for another brand.
What?
He said I'm gonna beat you up and stuff like that.
What?
But you can see there's things there to slightly reduce the risk of giving them a pro skate. If I'm a young kid looking at these lot, I'm sure I'd be thinking they're inspiring and they're cool. And if I'm really good at skating and I dress a little bit like Terry and Dina from Fubar, I might get on a team and I might get a skate. Maybe the fact that young skaters don't dominate the pro skate category, it's just a bit of a reality check for some people, you know? It's like, it's hard to get that pro status, and it's not an industry that can support everybody. What are your expectations for a person to get a pro skate? And what young skater like meets those requirements? Is it at least a handful of classic sections? Is it competition wins? Is it big social media following? Should the question just be who has the most influence and ability to sell skates? This is the pro skate you are looking for. Does it have to be about young skaters as well? Might it just be a changing of the guard that people want to see, or better representation? Chihiro Izuma and China Wirestall are women in their later 20s, early 30s, but that have the support for a pro skate, so should they be getting one? I wouldn't question Junyu Park getting a skate, and I'd actually really like him to, but he's in his 30s. Interestingly, the most noise I've heard recently for a pro skate has been for Fabiola da Silva, which again leads into nostalgia, but would also be amazing for representation, and she just so happens to have a strong social media following. What muddies it all is the driving force behind purchasing a pro skate these days. I asked my YouTube followers, and clearly you're more concerned with the design of the skate, so the fit and the features, plus the aesthetic, the way it looks, the colourways, etc. Whose name was on it didn't seem to matter much. Clear examples of this are Bobby Spazov's last 2 skates, a well-liked skater, and even the skimmed M12 was a popular skate for Valo. But that didn't sell well because people didn't like the aesthetic of it. They thought it was rank. People were asking for the broom skate, but I've not seen that a lot. And I hear it's because people aren't a fan of the shifts. And again, I've seen a fair few comments about the colourway. Older names sell because of nostalgia. As an aside, if you look at the anniversary and re-release issued skates, they also happen to be more subtle colours. The older pros who are active now and still getting pro skates probably benefit from a bit of the nostalgia as well. Farmer's a well-respected skater with a huge amount of history behind him. He's still putting out ridiculous content as well, like Lomax is still unreal, Crofts is still dropping absolute banger sections, Sean and Colin Kelso released probably the edit of the year and they seem to be getting more refined, and Broskow proves even more that he's the GOAT. Interestingly, his last pro skate was 2019, and something tells me he stepped back from needing a pro skate, not like in terms of skill or anything like that. I think it's a personal choice. In summary, it's not like they don't deserve it. They have a history of selling skates, but should they make way for the new generation, and will they do soon? As an example, Derek Henderson, who only actually really recently got pro skates, very respectfully stepped back from his position to give opportunities to someone else because he didn't feel he could live up to like what he believed a pro should be doing. Is it on the skater or is it on the brand? Rollerblading is not exactly a lucrative career financially, So maybe they deserve a few more royalty checks. And I wouldn't blame them for going for that if they're still putting out the edits and they're still selling skates. Back to the poll though, does this mean in this day and age you can kind of give anyone a pro skate as long as it's designed well, with a well executed colourway, and they're given a popular boot? Could the brands just be listening to the names that are being thrown at them and pick one of them?
It's you.
Sell skates and brand confidence goes up because you did what the people asked for and you've supported a young rider. Even then it still feels safer, or like you'd make more money going with nostalgia or sticking with the team and riders that you know already works. Which is really sad. I'd love to see more young skaters get pro skates. Which of the brands can sensibly take on another pro? Or do we just face reality and realise that being a pro skater isn't really a career path, and instead of taking people onto the pro team, instead maybe you have one full-time, fully paid pro team rider, and then everybody else gets like a one-off skate but isn't like contracted to that brand? It's a bit chicken or the egg. Are young people put off from starting skating, or do they quit because they don't see the young pros there? Or is it that they simply just don't see enough young kids doing it in the first place? Amongst a million other reasons why you're not rollerblading, but assuming they had a slice of interest in it. Any young skater posting on social media is showing other young people it's a thing. Brands that have young riders on AM or Flow are giving them some sort of support. If their content is shared by that brand, it's giving them a platform. Maybe the same could be said if any other bigger skater or content creator shares their stuff as well. There's sections in competitions for representation, which all surely helps. Yes, the ultimate compliment and cosign will always be the pro team status and the pro skate.
It is unreal, honestly. Like, I would have never thought I would just hold a setup in my hands that just fully has my name on it. Except for the frames, you better come correct now.
But there are things in between that will still encourage young kids to get into it. When I first started skating, I thought the pros were fucking ancient and you had to be really old to be a pro. And it didn't put me off at all, I just didn't care. But I would love it.
I'll tell you, honestly, I will love it
if the ratio of like older pro to young pro was a little bit more balanced. I like to think the sales from these nostalgic releases will eventually go into the youth of skating. And I hope when brands take a risk on a younger skater, it's actually supported. If you are a younger skater, there are examples of young skaters who add pro skates. But mostly, just enjoy it and see where it takes you, rather than listening to adults trying to guess what you're thinking. We'll see what happens in the next 5 to 10 years. That's your lot. Shout out to all my YouTube and Patreon riders. It genuinely, without your support, I couldn't do this, so I love you. Thank you very much. Here's a couple of other videos you can watch until the next one comes out, and I'll see you again soonish. Spotty dog.